Hi everyone, Johnny Fraser Allen here from Tabletop Troubadour Games. I am standing in front of a full-in pledge tier of the full Hagglethorn Hollow set. This is the factory paint job that you get straight out of the box. Some people ordered the unpainted, which is exciting. We can't wait to see what you do with that. This is a painting tutorial video to show you guys out there how you can get to this paint job relatively quickly and certainly affordably, the same way I got my paint job ready for the factory to use as paint masters to get to this. To do that today, we're going to be focusing on the fisherman's storehouse here, and we have the hunter's lodge, which is its alternate roof to the base that it shares there. We're doing that because that will cover every colour palette you need for the full range of Hagglethorn Hollow, being stone, wattle and daub, wood, tiles, we've got thatch, that's an important one, things like that. Set up here is what you're going to need for painting these things. First, let's start with the paint. I've limited Hagglethorn Hollow to a very cohesive colour palette, very old, ancient, brown world, sort of Arthur Rackham colour palette style. To do that, I went to just a Home Depot store, they're called Bunnings over here, it could be any paint shop, and this is a $7 tester bottle of paint. These, I've painted 3 or 4 sets of Hagglethorn Hollow now, and full sets, and I'm still using these, whereas the paints I love to use the most, Citadel paints, that's the same price, and so you're going to go further with one of these, and there's not actually a lot difference in the paint, and the variety is phenomenal. So you want to choose a colour for each different thing you're going to be painting. As said before, we're looking at thatch, wood, stone, masonry, wattle and daub, and tiles, a couple things like that. You want to pick out what you want to paint and then get your colour cards, take them up to the counter and ask for a tester paint pot, and you're going to be set. This is an affordable thing of wood stain. You can get a big bucket, you can get them smaller than this. Wood stain for me is the key to my painting success with scenery. It's basically the heavy duty sepia wash of terrain painting. And you want a range of paintbrushes, you know, from your big butty busters that are just going to slap on your first layers, to my favourite, what we'll be using, there it is, most of in this tutorial, when you're just doing your base colours in, kind of a thin flat headed one, and then you've got, you know, your finer, you know, miniature painting ones you might not even find you'll need, but if you've just gone over some bits in the dry brushing phase, these are very handy. And then just you probably won't need your Tajima, but something sharp, a scalpel maybe, just to go over some of the flashing that may or may not still be on the mold that you get out of the box, but these are actually pretty good to go. Okay, we're going to be using isopropyl alcohol to begin with, just to basically clean off any potential demolding agents that may still be on the sculpture, which is, you know, your model maker's bread and butter standard way of getting ready your sculpture for its first coat of paint, whether that's spray painting a primer or just ripping into the first coat, which we'll be doing. This is always a good first step. Get in all the nooks and crannies. Right. That will dry pretty quickly, maybe leave it out in the sun, it shouldn't take long, and then you're ready to paint on your first base coat of brown. Right, ISO's done, it's dried off, and we are going to be basing all 3 pieces in this colour. This is called Gambra Brown. I don't know if that range is available wherever you're buying your paint, but it's basically Steel Legion Drab in the Citadel paint range. It's just a nice earthy, dirty old brown for my nice earthy, dirty old town. You shake it up, and I like to just paint from the lid rather than the pot. Yeah, no skill required whatsoever. Stick some Netflix on and just enjoy. And rather than brushing like you're painting a flat surface, you know, don't be fond of your brushes. You're going to ruin a lot of them going through the process of painting this many buildings. Just really jam it in there, because Hagglethorn is quite a detailed sculpture. There's lots of nooks and crannies, and especially on the thatch, you're going to find there's lots of little bits where, in the hay sort of areas, where you're going to have to go over a few times and really get your bristles in there. But other than that, nothing really to this stage than just getting these all brown and painted and ready for detailing. Great. Well, you can see the visual progress you're already getting from just basing your 3 buildings here. You've not only based your building, you've actually already painted the wood, because by now putting in your other base colors and avoiding the wooden areas, it's already painted for you. We're going to now grab a smaller brush with just a flat edge, and we're going to focus on one color on each of these buildings. For the base floor, we're going to be painting all of the ground tiles grey. For the thatch topper, we're going to be painting all of the thatch color. And for the tile topper, we're just going to be painting all of the tiles that you can see, that classic mahogany looking red for the Hagglethorn color palette. That's 1, 2, 3, and you'll very quickly start to see this township come together. Now you can see how effective this brown undercoat is with the thatch, because you don't really have to paint every last straw here. The little gaps you're missing around the wood and the rope you're avoiding just kind of add to the layered, textured depth of the overall paint job, and the wood stain's going to come over all of this and really pop and pick up those recesses anyway, so don't work harder than you have to. Okay, so we're very quickly starting to realize Hagglethorn Hollow here. The next step, I'm going to use this color here to pop all of the masonry. All 3 of these buildings here have masonry. A lot of it is from behind the crumbling wattle and daub, which we're going to avoid, and just bring out the stones that you see on the vertical build there in this lovely sort of labyrinth maze color. You may have a little trouble distinguishing between the wattle and daub and the bricks. That's actually a purposeful part of the sculpting, in the same way that the brick colour isn't that far away from the wattle and daub that's going to go over it, because when your washers seam this all together, it's going to look like ancient old crumbling masonry and wattle and daub, and where it's crumbled off it would obviously leave a similar sort of colour. Okay, now that some of these simpler base colours are on, we're going to mix things up a little bit by alternating various brick colours and the grey stone tiles on the floor and that kind of light tan masonry on the vertical. We're going to use a lighter colour for maybe every 3rd brick on the masonry there. This is the same colour we'll be using for the wattle and daub, so it's all going to blend in very well. And for the stonework, every couple of bricks we're just going to add this bizarre colour, which will all blend in later. This helps blend the floor in with the walls, because again we are looking for that unified brown washed ancient sort of township here, so it's good fun. Let's rip into it. Okay, so when alternating the bricks, we're not trying to make it look like a checkerboard. We want it to kind of look just like a natural pile of different coloured bricks that the masons used. So you're going to want to spread them a little bit like that, and every now and then you're going to want to paint 2 next to each other like that. You might want to think of it as 1, 2, 3. So you do another 1 and a 2, and then you do 3, 2 together. And if you just try and make it look a bit sporadic like that, this is all going to tie it. Once this has been wood stained and then a grey dry brush over the whole lot, you're only going to get a hint of these different colour variations. So you might watch this video and think, you know, I'm happy to not even go with that and save yourself some time. But I always like to have that extra little bit of variant for detail. It adds a lot, especially if you're going to be doing some close-up photographs of your game. Okay, so base colours are on, it's shaping up, it's looking pretty good. Now we're going to move into the dry brushing phase. And I really like this brush. We're going to stick with this little flathead guy. It's done most of our painting for us, but it's a good size to do dry brushing on some of these details without mucking up some of your other paint jobs, which isn't important if you do, by the way. We're going to do that at the end, touch-ups. But we're going to do 2 dry brushing colours on Hagglethorn Hollow pieces here. One is the tile dry brush. If I can open this manky old paint I've been using for some time now. This is just kind of a pop color highlight, which makes the tiles look great. And then we're going to be doing the dry brush on all of the wattle and daub. You might call it stucco, but just this medieval crumbly grotty plastering that's covering the masonry. So let's start with the tiles. Okay, dry brushing, the key word there being dry. You're getting your brush in the paint, but you're just making sure there's a little bit of paint on the brush, so I'm using the back of my hand there to get the most of it off. And then we're just going downwards on these tiles, adding that kind of hot baked terracotta feel that Hagglethorn Hollow has on its roof tiles. And look at me, look, I'm not being precious at all. I'm just slapping this on there, knowing that this brush is small enough to avoid the other bits of wood I've already painted. And this is the exact same process we're going to be applying with the kind of skull bone coloured white that we're going to be applying to the wattle and daub as soon as we've done this. Okay, so you will now have all your wattle and daub dry brushed, and it's feeling pretty cohesive as a set of buildings here. The last little detail we're going to put on these before we go into the masterful, beautiful, bind it all together wood stain phase is just going to a smaller brush, and we're going to be using the same colour as wattle and daub just to keep that colour palette very limited, and just brush over the top of these ropes to show where they are bound into the thatch. And the wood stain is going to really pop a lot more details on these ropes, but for now, for this simple Hagglethorn paint pass, this is all you're going to really need to do for these ropes. Okay, so here we are. You've done a great job of just basing in your colours and your dry brushing. It's looking pretty tidy. You might find that this is good enough for your tabletop, and you're ready to go. But we're going to focus on wood stain now, which is for me the trickiest part of the process, but the most rewarding. Say if you're an average miniature painter, but then you stick on some Citadel wash and suddenly you look like a great painter. This is what wood stain does for Hagglethorn Hollow. It's too expensive to use this kind of amazing wash that I do like, but it's cost prohibitive to do full buildings of Hagglethorn Hollow. Wood stain is the mega wash for these, but it's not as simple as just brushing it on like a Citadel wash. Let me show you what I mean here. Let's focus on this building. We are going to want to focus on small areas at a time, so they're manageable areas. And you don't have to be precious. You want to gloop it in the gloop and really get in there with your brush. But once you've painted this in the manageable area, you are going to get a soft cotton rag, and the softer the better, but they are rags. They're not going to be usable after this. And then we're going to wipe it all out. But we're wiping the top surface off, leaving the gloop in the actual recesses, which is what's going to give it that manky look. I'm just going to rip straight into it and show you what I mean here. Get in there with the brush. We're going to just completely cover this full room. Don't need to be precious. What we're looking for is we do need to get it in every single crack and recess. That is the important part of this process. It pays not to leave huge puddles, so do spread it around into the cracks. Okay, now this is also the reason why we primed the building and are using house paint on it. Try and be as soft as you can when you're wiping this off. Definitely get in there, but don't press too hard on the surface while you're wiping. This is why we're using a soft cotton rag. And you know, don't be too worried if you have wiped off a bit of paint. It's very easy to touch this up with a little bit of dry brushing. And sometimes with these really kind of deep or tight nooks, you're just going to want to dab as opposed to wipe. But that took no time at all. And once that dries and the gloss settles back a bit, you have one filmic looking scungy room. And there we have it, a finished Hunter's Lodge and Fisherman's Storehouse, ready for tabletop ready playtime. So I'm pretty happy with how this has turned out. This is the exact method of how everything was painted for the Kickstarter video and how we've presented these. And you might find at the end process here, some of the wood stain may have taken a little bit of the paint back to the product underneath. That is so simple to fix. That is just a quick, easy dry brush of the original undercolor there. If anything, you're going to highlight it more and make it look better. You can see even I'm missing bits here. Here is a bit of wood stain that I didn't manage to wipe off. I actually think that looks really cool, but if I want to keep that a bit more consistent or the building a bit cleaner looking, I will again just go over all the wattle and daub kind of bone white areas with a dry brush, same way I kind of painted it on. You can see on the frontage of this building I've just given a little bit of a zhuzh with a dry brush there, and it's really popping that white and really brings all this out. But otherwise, that is Hagglethorn Hollow. As you can see, you've just watched me paint this one today. Here's one I've pulled directly out of the box from the factory. So they've done a pretty good job at pulling off the look, the tabletop ready look that I wanted to get for Hagglethorn Hollow. I mean, if anything, I actually like the roof tiles better on this one. But speaking of what you might want to do with your Hagglethorn Hollow, I've gone ahead and painted up a different colour palette here. I'm a big fan of Mordheim, and I'm going to be starting collecting in a Death Army, so I wanted a bleaker look of Hagglethorn Hollow with a set that we've got here. And just to show you what you can do, this here, make some space for it. All I've done with this building is taken a pre-painted factory copy, and all I've done is change the colour of the masonry with two colours of masonry, just a light grey and a dark grey, and then I've done a blue and the same dark grey for the masonry on alternate tiles here. There's no additional dry brushing or washes. That's a simple go at that. If you want to see it dry brushed, that's the difference there. So we're starting to pop some of these tiles with a lighter grey, starting to pop some of the masonry with a lighter grey. And we talked about Citadel Wash before, so wood stain versus Citadel Wash. Here is a full building of Hagglethorn Hollow. Now this is done with Citadel Wash, and this is the difference between wash and wood stain. It's subtler and certainly gives an amazing feel over the whole thing, but this cost an entire pottle, a $13 pottle of Citadel Sepia Wash, which is my favourite stuff to use, and the much more affordable wood stain, I don't think there's a lot in it, and in some ways the wood stain pops a lot more, but I just wanted to show you what, different options of what you might want to do and how it costs up. But I'm really happy with this as an alternate colour palette for Hagglethorn Hollow. I'm looking forward to getting that to the tabletop once I put the washes on these other ones. But other than that, you can see how much fun you can have painting your city to look like there's different factions and different guilds. You've got the the necromancers versus the wizards or what have you. You put a bunch of, there might be some green schemed roofs out there, and then you throw in the yellow of the thatch as well behind that, and you're starting to get a pretty diverse looking cityscape, which was always the purpose of Hagglethorn Hollow. Well, that's it from me. I hope you found that video informative. I can't wait to see all your paint schemes and add-ons of what you're going to do with these buildings and your tabletop setups, and most importantly, the games you play in them. Thanks for watching, and happy gaming.